crisp winter's morning, nice and cold and windy. Hopefully you can hear this. Topsy Turvy Australia. George Orwell wrote in Brave New World that black is white and white is black. And 21st century Australia is a classical example of that little statement. Black is white and white is black. What I want to discuss today is lifters and leaners. For those of you who were caught up in the robo-debt fiasco will understand that the previous government's strategy was to divide Australians in terms of whether they were social security beneficiaries or not. And that's what robo-debt was, a totally illegal system which resulted in suicides, for which nobody has been prosecuted for, was all about. It was about highlighting the divisions between those with wealth and those without wealth, and describing those without wealth as leaners, and those without wealth and those with wealth as lifters. So we had the good and the bad. We had the leaners, who were sucking the country dry, and we had the lifters, the small section of society that owns the means of production, distribution, exchange and communication, as the good guys. They're the ones that created wealth, and the rest of us, especially those on social security benefits and low wages, were those who were sucking the lifeblood out of the community. And that's what we were told. Useful propaganda in terms of creating divisions in society, in terms of securing votes. Very useful propaganda. So here we are in 2024. Robo-debt was a fiasco, and we no longer have people talking about lifters and leaners, especially in a period of low unemployment where it's all about not having enough labour, and we need to import labour to resolve the issues we find ourselves in. But I want to go back to this concept of lifters and leaners. It's an exceptionally important concept, because I just want to make a few analogies, a few statements. Are the 1.2 million children living in poverty in this country leaners? Are people on single parents benefits who find themselves in that situation leaners? Are people on unemployment benefits leaners? Are people on student allowance leaners? Are the working poor the fastest growing segment of the Australian labour force, where although one or two people in a household work and their combined wages can't even meet their week-to-week financial responsibilities? Are they leaners? Are the 23% of Australians who earn the basic wage, which is around $900, are they leaners? Are those honest, hard-working people who pay their taxes, obey the law, keep their nose to the grindstone, don't complain, come out at election time and cast a ballot? Are they leaners? Because let's not forget that 1/3 of the Australian population relies on social security benefits to survive. That's 1/3 out of 26 million. And that 1% own over 60% of the wealth in this country, and the bottom 40% own less than 1% of the wealth in this country. So who are the real leaners? As I said, we're taught in this country, this topsy-turvy world of Australia in the 21st century, that black is white and white is black. We're told those people who are the most exploited, I don't use the word disadvantaged, there's no such thing as disadvantage, it's about exploitation. Those people who are most exploited are the leaners. Those people who find themselves in difficult situations, some of their own making, some of not, most not of their own making, they're the leaners. Well, the CEOs of this country, the 1% that own the means of production, distribution, exchange and communication, whose wealth has exploded over the past decade, doubled in all the billionaires' cases and the millionaires. Are they the lifters? Are those people who rely on a taxation system which is designed to ensure that those who have the most continue to have the most and continue to expand their fortunes at the expense of the rest of Australians? Are they the lifters? Are those bureaucrats in the public service at the state and federal level who are there to carry out government policy, who have extensive salaries, wonderful superannuations? Are they the lifters? Think about it. Who are the lifters? Who are the leaners? Who are the ones who are making a fortune on the blood, sweat and tears of the majority of people in this country? Who are the ones who are using this country's taxation-friendly laws to legalise their taxes to an extraordinary extent? Who are the ones who refuse to pay taxes legally and then set up philanthropic trusts to support causes which they support? Who are the ones who have profited from the extensive privatisation at both the state and federal level of resources which were built up by the blood, sweat and tears of generations to ensure that all Australians had access to this country's basic necessities? Who are the ones who have their hands out constantly for more government support? It's the corporate sector. It's the so-called movers and shakers. It's the so-called lifters. They're the ones who benefit through the exploitation of everyone else. That is the reality of this topsy-turvy world we find ourselves in. And the tragedy is, and it is a tragedy, that many of the so-called lifters in this society are more than happy for the same problems in this society to continue. No wonder we never seem to be able to address anything. whether it's the expanding waiting lists in public hospitals, whether it's the utter shame of the public education sector, the utter shame that it finds itself in, whether it's the increasing amount of public resources which go into private corporate hands to maximise profits. So who are the leaners? Think about it. Who are the ones who are taking advantage of the situation because they, through the power they exercise, through the wealth they have, are able to determine parliamentary legislation? And which are the political parties which rely on corporate donations in order to survive and expand and govern? And which are the parties which refuse point blank to change the current situation? So in this topsy-turvy world, we see year after year the so-called lifters, who are really leaners, become the heroes and heroines of the 21st century Australia. These are the ones we're supposed to aspire to. Those that are willing to exploit their fellow human beings to feather their own nest. That's what Orwell was talking about when he was talking about black is white and white is black. You get to a situation in a society where we find that the majority of population believe the propaganda. But things are beginning to change. The squeeze is on. People are having a difficulty paying for the basic necessities of life. We are reaping the benefits of a parched political, community, social, cultural landscape which has been misused and manipulated to put the interests of a few before the interests of So, if we find out in this situation, what do? Do we accept the status quo? Shrug our shoulders? Pay our taxes? Obey the law? Doff our caps? Lose ourselves in the sporting meccas? Do we blame our neighbour for the issues we face as a society? Do we blame the person with a funny hat, or who dresses differently, or is a different colour, who speaks a different language, who comes from a different country, who lives in a different suburb? We can always find differences. Or do for once in our lives as a people begin to understand that the situation we find ourselves in is not related to migrants, people of different colour, gender identity, sexual orientation. Because in each and every one of those groups, you have the exploited and those that do the exploitation. Identity politics may be able to resolve the issues of specific minorities in society, but it will never be able to resolve the issue of the inequality which has become part of our DNA. That inequality is so ingrained in our thinking as a people that we've lost hope that change is desirable, let alone possible. So we fight amongst each other for the crumbs, and that's right, crumbs, which are based off the corporate table. And that's what we seem to do week after week, year after year, decade after decade. The gap between the rich and poor continues to increase exponentially every year because no reforms are made regarding the essential inequalities which are due to the hierarchical nature of our society, where a small proportion of the population have extraordinary powers because of their influence over the political process. Parliamentary democracy has become nothing more than a sick joke. When representatives who are theoretically elected by us cannot look after the interests of the majority and continue ad nauseum to reinforce the power of the rich and the corporate sector, then we know we have major issues. And these major issues will continue until we as a people see beyond our differences and understand it doesn't matter what the sexual orientation or the gender or the colour or the religion or the culture of the person who has their boot on your throat that matters. What matters is that boot is on your throat, and that boot is on our throat as a people. And of every sovereign nation state, over 200 on this planet, we should be the one that should be at the forefront in terms of looking after the needs of our people. 26 million people living on a continent that's resource rich. It's unbelievable the situation we find ourselves in, where you have private charities raising money to send Australian children to public schools. So unless we are willing to move beyond those decisions, it'll be the same story day in and day out. The same stories. Different political leaders, the same stories. That's why public interest before corporate interest was created in 2015. And let's be realistic. It has been slow progress. Exceptionally slow progress for a variety of reasons. Most people believe that black is white and white is black. They believe the propaganda that we live in the land of milk and honey, that this country is an egalitarian community. But conditions are now changing and people are beginning to realise this is not true. Many people think, what's the point? There's no point. If everybody thought like that, there would have been no change since the beginning of human history. We'd still have wholesale slavery. We still would have children working in mines at the age of 4. We would still find ourselves living a hand-to-mouth existence. Obviously, all change comes because people are willing to take a stand. They're willing to put their head above the parapet. They're willing to say black is not white and white is not black, that black is black and white is white. And once you believe that, or say that, and know that, then you're in a position to get involved in a new social movement. A social movement which puts the interests of the many before the few. That's what public interest before corporate interest is all about. It's not just about forming a political party to garner votes at elections. It's much more than that. It's about creating a cultural, social, political milieu which challenges the very basis that this society is based on. You can join today. You can join tomorrow, or you can continue to be part of the somebody should do something about that tribe, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. That's what they rely on. Us not taking action. Join public interest before corporate interest today. Go to the website pibci.net. Join online now.